We're here now with Karen Hiller with the Topeka City Council. Karen, thank you for joining us this morning.
Welcome.
And I wanted to start with the homeless vote last night. This a big issue in Topeka, as you heard, 84 active encampments in the last 2 weeks. But last night the council took a big step forward. What was that step?
Well, we took the step, as you reported a little bit earlier, to ban camping within 500 feet, which is almost a city block, from the trails. Including the levee trails, as well as 50 feet from sidewalks. That is a big step. There's going to be a delay in getting it started. It doesn't start today, so that there's time for the police department and all the partners to figure out how this is going to be implemented. But the challenge, and you had Nick Zaitis on your film here just a minute ago. He lives downtown. He's in my district, so it's not just districts 2 and 5. We talked a lot last night about the fact that people who are on private property, where are these folks going to go? The service discussion that we've been having all along. How do you balance the fact that, as Nick pointed out last night at the council meeting, we need everybody to operate by the same rules, you know, trash, belligerent behavior, taking care of personal, private activities in public, like in downtown and in Evergy Plaza on the fountains and so on. We've got a lot of work to do. So that was a step along the way. I think you all have followed the fact that the city has put together a task force of both city and private sector partners to work together to look at the whole picture of what's going on with homelessness and what we can do. And it's being convened by a facilitator from out of town who's just there to facilitate, but bring our local people together to look at what the issues are, what the solutions can be, and come up with a master plan. And that has been reactivated by the council as well and has already had its first meetings. So that is underway as well to look at what all the alternatives are and get this problem solved for Topeka in as fair a way to not only the homeless persons, but also the people that are being affected. So.
And speaking of that incident with Nick, as you were saying, regarding his grandchild and walking or coming across that woman that was bathing,
right.
That is a very concerning issue. So when he does bring up that second offense violations proposal, do you agree with something like that, putting something in place to make sure that those restrictions are there?
We really didn't talk about it. But it was important for her to bring forward. Part of the reason we're where we are is because the folks don't have any money, so to pay a fine is difficult. But people don't want to put them in jail. If somebody's got mental health and behavioral issues, what do we do? The county is addressing that as well, and they are part of this team that's looking at this whole community-wide, what is the problem and what are our solutions? So just throwing everybody in jail, the reason there was some talk of a low barrier shelter was, well, all right, if we don't want to do jail, what can we do? But just throwing a bunch of people who aren't at a good time in their lives all in one place doesn't work either. So there really is a lot of work going on at this point, and I think actively on all points. What we did last night was just a piece of it to address the problem. And anybody who has some observations or ideas, a lot of different things were talked about last night. You don't want the equal and opposite unexpected consequence, like if you ban camping everywhere, then people can't have their kids camp out in their backyard. And there was a little bit of language added last night to make sure that people could still do that. We want a welcoming community. We're talking about developing the river, so how does that affect, people's freedom to have to come all the way down the river and make stops. So there will be a lot of work to be done, but that we have had so much trouble on the riverfront area and near the trails that the city took that step last night. A week before, the county took a position about banning camping on all county-owned and managed property. So we still have to still work together to figure out the whole picture.
Still a lot more to do.
A lot more to do.
Okay.
But people are at the table, and thoughtful people who are who are looking both at enforcing all of our ordinances on everybody, including folks who are homeless, as well as trying to help people, making sure that that's done with care and courage.
And I know there are also two big updates. I'm going to start with the first one, the update on the hiring process for the city manager. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, we have engaged a consultant at this point. He reached out to people Thursday or Friday last week and asked for, they've got a really great questionnaire for the council members to turn in what they're looking for so that he can compile that and make sure that he's got a picture. That way he gets to know each of us really, but also so that he can work with us on that hiring process, but has a good picture of what we're looking for. And so they are already going. I'm not sure everybody's submitted yet, but apparently people are turning their stuff in so that we can go. This particular company keeps in touch with what they described as many as 500 people at any given point. So once they're clear on what you're looking for, what the circumstances are in that community, they're confident that they can bring somebody in pretty fast.
Oh, so very quickly this process is moving?
Well, it started. It
Okay.
started, and it started on a very thoughtful and complete approach. So there's not a specific timeline. Richard Neested has been just great, and he has told us he would stay as long as through Christmas. So
Okay.
we'll see. That gives us not a hard pressure to get the right person in and get them here when they can get here. So.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah.
And we're talking also about the Hotel Topeka closing. Really quick, tell me how far along you are with the city acquiring Hotel Topeka.
The closing is at this point set for the end of October.
Okay.
And the city didn't expect that much time, but is in the final stages of, I think in both cases, of a contract with someone to manage the property itself, as well as, if I've got this right, what they call an asset management company, who helps you look at the exact condition of the asset, how it's working. We need to decide what kind of renovations, what you do right away, what you do along the way. That has to do with what you expect for the occupancy in the hotel, how much you could refresh rooms while it's still open, or whether you need to close. There's pretty strong commitment from the council that it would stay open throughout. There also was a meeting with the county. Again, this hotel doesn't stand alone. We just had the taxpayers invested over $50 million in updating the expo center. So we want to make sure that all those events and conferences and so on continue, and that people continue to have confidence to book them, which is why we bought the hotel and why we're hanging on to it. But we don't expect to hang on to it long term, but why we're working at the top of the line on what's the best way to manage this asset until we can turn it over to somebody else. Meanwhile, the other piece of that is the Manor Conference Center, which needs some upgrading, which uses the catering services from the hotel for the events that are down there. And so there has been a walkthrough and a meeting with the county within the last week as well, to make sure that we're all fully engaged in what this future planning looks like.